Hey, 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 what's up? What's up? Good morning, afternoon, or evening, good people, wherever you are, wherever you happen to be, and however we're together. Thank you for being here. I'm Dave, and this is Dave's Head. So, what's in my head? The day I'm recording this is a Monday. I'm going to talk about in a little bit what happened last week. Nice ending to the week, a little traveling, little guest appearances. But today is Monday, and apparently the clock struck 12 in the news media. Before we got to today, there was last week where Fox, or Fixed, as I like to call them, News, settled their defamation lawsuit with Dominion Voting and agreed to pay them a whopping $787 million plus $0.5. $787.5 million to settle their defamation case. And if you follow this case at all, you know that the discovery phase of all this was just a classic clusterfuck for Fox News. There's so many things that leaked, and I'm using air quotes, but so many things that leaked during discovery that showed that Fox knew that they were lying, didn't care that they were lying, wanted the ratings and the advertisers and all the things that came with people watching your show in today's age, which means advertisers, which means advertising dollars, which means you can jack up the prices for advertising blocks. And so they knew there was no rigging or stealing of the election. They knew that the Dominion voting systems weren't adding votes for Joe Biden. They knew all this stuff, and yet decided to put it out there to their sheep, as I call them, anyway, and push the narrative of a stolen election. Now, the amazing thing to me, by the way, is that you can get all the way with this, and your only penance is just paying off some money. Oh, and by the way, Fox Corp, the parent company for Fox News, simply gets to write this off as operational expenses, business expenses. So they can feel free to not lose a ton of money. They actually probably wind up getting money back from the government in taxes with all this tax break from $787.5 million. You get to just write it off. Tax system and tax code is amazing, isn't it? So I'm sure in the language there's there's a clause that says Dominion can't say exactly the details of the agreement or settlement. And I'm sure somewhere in that settlement, Fox Corp and Fox News don't have to actually admit fault, because you know how these settlements work. We'll pay you money to shut up about this already, as long as we don't have to admit we did anything wrong. That means we can spin it with our followers and our sheep and all these people out there. We can just spin it all types of way. We only did this to move on. We only did this to get to the real issues. We only did this to get to the problems that are hurting you, because they over there, they're the ones that are hurting you. They're the ones that are making your life a living hell. So we're just going to pay this money. That's the only reason we did it, good people of America. We only paid this $787.5 million just to make it easier for us to get you the truth. That's what it's all about. Keep that sheep herd herding. Sell the lie. Push the lie. Keep pushing the lie. And when you got to pay because you lied, you just pay. Don't admit that you lied and spin it around. That's what they do. And I thought that would be the end of it. And if you know, there's another lawsuit from the other voting system that Fox News was lying about as well. And they've come out on record and said, this is basically our bottom starting position. You're going to have to pay us a lot more to get out of this one. And, I wish that there was actual penance that Fox Corp, they're going to pay this money out, but they get to write it off. So what difference does it make? What lesson is being learned here or taught here than learned? There's no admittance of a blatant lying by the network and their peons that go on the air and talk about this crap. make up lies. Did they ever figure out how Obama wasn't born in America but pretended he was? Just curious. But you figure this might be all the news for the week. We're good. Fox News has to pay up. The other lawsuit will be, months down the line, blah, blah, blah. Then we come to Monday. And Monday started Mondaying pretty early in the afternoon, when I got a first alert that said Tucker Carlson had been fired from Fox News, but Fox News. Now, you figure there's a lot of language play in how they do these things, right? We've peacefully decided to go our separate ways. Amicable separation. No, you decided you're going to fire him, and you decided to come up with this story to save face. Why? Because you just shelled out $787.5 million in a defamation lawsuit that was championed by your number one host. Maybe you had to cut somebody loose. But then it comes out, well, this is not just about Dominion and the lies that they told, that story is true, by the way. They did lie, in case you don't know. There was no stolen election. Hopefully, if you're listening to my show, you know this already. But his producer was also fired with him. And there's allegations in the lawsuit of sexism and harassment. And I urge you to just go read about this. That there was so much just sexism going on in his production meetings and in the office. There's Nancy Pelosi. They put her head on a body or did some sort of drawing or something like that. Whereas Nancy Pelosi with all this cleavage showing. And then there's a report about allegedly something that occurred at Fox News where they're having these pictures sent around the office of two governors and, excuse my language, taking a poll on which one the staffers would rather fuck. I mean, it makes sense that they weren't too upset about grabbing women by the hoo-ha, right? If you don't know movies I'm from, I urge you to Google the word hoo-ha and go look up the movie. It's a comedy. I'll give you a hint. It's a comedy. So it's not surprising that network found nothing wrong and just called it locker room talk and all this other stuff. And it's no surprise that they're defending Don DeCon with his lawsuit for lying about his taxes, which is, I'm so surprised. But it makes sense now. If this is the culture of your office, then grabbing a woman by her hoo-ha is nothing. Like literally nothing. Who cares to you? And just when I thought that Monday had been done, wrapped up, finito, finish, Mondayan, here comes another alert. Don Lemon, fired by CNN today. Now, when I did the research on this, so why would it be? Now, let's take a step back for a second. First of all, Don has had so much controversy. I'm surprised he lasted this long. I thought they were going to walk away from him a long time ago. Every time I turned around, Don Lemon done said something. Got a hot mic here. How do you not know all these years that you need to make sure the mic's off or not hot, as they say, before you start yapping your mouth? But apparently, recently, back in February, he made a sexist comment that women, essentially, are only considered in their prime in their 20s and 30s and maybe their 40s. And when his co-hosts kind of like, what? What are you talking about? He doubled and tripled down on it before finally reportedly apologizing in a staffers meeting or something like that later. And so on the very same day, Tucker Carlson and Don Lemon were both fired from their respective news organizations. And I saw a funny picture that somebody put Lemon and Carson's head on the stair or porch scene in Friday with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. And it was comical. It was hilarious. But what I keep coming back to with this whole situation is how much it took for these people to get fired. When I talk about the criminal justice system, when I talk about the tax code, when I talk about public persona and allegedly so-called air quotes cancel culture, when I talk about those things, you've heard me say before there's two different worlds we live in. There's a world where those who live in it are rarely punished for the same things we who don't live in it would be easily punished for. And you think about it, if you defamed an organization, the government, a private person, just you, me, same level. If you did that, your settlement would bankrupt you and spiral you into a financial pit of misery for years to come. And you probably serve some jail time depending on who you defamed. But Tucker Carlson gets to play a role in inciting an insurrection. Yeah, it was an insurrection. I know it hurts to even think about that, but it was. And basically gets to walk away with his golden parachute, the money he's made, no prosecution, no nothing. And that's just it. And Don Lemon, I don't know if there's sensitivity training he needs. I mean, there's no criminal aspect of Don Lemon that I'm aware of. But, dude, just report the news. I get it. You're kind of a big thing now. I mean, you weren't that big in PA or I think Alabama. But you made your way up. You earned it. But, dude, chill. Now, I put this out there, and if it actually happens, I want some credit, some kickback, something for it. If it actually happens, I think it'd be great if Don Lemon and Tucker Carlson got together and did a show. Can you imagine the polarizing topics, the polarizing opinions? Every episode would be fireworks and comedy. I could see them both fact-checking each other, air quotes, because neither one will be fact-checking truthfully. But I can see them fact-checking each other nonstop. Going back and forth, pounding desks, screaming, all these things. Kind of like wrestling, though. Fake. Scripted. I can see something like that happening. And while it's something that popped in my mind, I really, really hope it doesn't. I kind of hope they both go do podcasts. Hey, Don Lemon, Tucker Carlson, I'll invite you on a Dave's Head. We can talk about all types of things. I'll get first thoughts, real first thoughts from you. But my last thought about this is, before I move on, is, for a group of people who screamed and raged about cancel culture. You know what I noticed on Twitter today? And I don't make it my business to go on Twitter just because I feel like there are way more idiots per capita on Twitter than Facebook or Instagram. I feel like there's a lot of outward racists more so on Twitter, at least that I see, than Facebook and Instagram. Now, don't get me wrong, I do a lot of blocking and not accepting, so it could be my own filters that are working. But for a group of people who scream about cancel culture, what I saw is vitriol towards Fox News on Twitter from their supposed followers, their supposed sheep, who are threatening to cancel. I guess Fox News has some pay subscription portion of their broadcast. They're people, I'm canceling Fox News paid subscription, whatever it's called. Canceling it. I'm walking away. Cancel. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought cancel culture was bad. Right? I thought we didn't like canceling people for doing what they want to do. Right? Or is it okay now? Because you're upset. But there sure is a heck of a lot of canceling going on right now in the last 24 hours that I saw on Twitter. The next thing that's on my mind is we're back in debt ceiling deja vu again. For those of you who may not be aware, and I'm including us in decisions that we clearly didn't make, but we as a country have debt that we owe, a lot of it. And if we get to a certain point, because of all our debt, our liabilities, all these things that are on our balance sheet, if we even have one of those, because we haven't balanced in I don't know how long. But this debt ceiling is raised anytime we get close to not having enough money to pay our debts, to pay the bonds and all that stuff. And if we don't raise the debt limit, the U.S. becomes default. The credit rating of the U.S. takes a nosedive. Inflation, depression, all these things are in the immediate forecast if that happens. But there's this outrage, of course, on the Republican side and the House of Representatives, who, although people who are in the chambers of the House that were there when the prior president was there had no problem raising the debt limit. No problem. Raise the debt ceiling. Come on. It's the American thing to do. It's the American thing to do. But now there's a huge problem. Now it's negotiations. Now it's the only way we'll do this if you do that. And that's the Speaker of the House, Mike McCarthy, I think his name is. Mark, whatever. I don't know his name. But some fun facts for you. Since 1960, the debt limit has been increased 78 times. 78 times since 1960. Little quick math, that's 23 years. 78 times in 23 years, right? Excuse me, not 23 years. 63 years. 78 times, 63 years. So it's a little more than one a year. And so you might be shocked to find this out. So 78 times, right? Now, you might think it may be close to 50-50. Dems in control, Republicans in control, who raise the debt limit. However, out of the 78 times, 49 times Republicans have raised it, and 29 times Democrats have. Now, you think if Republicans are the party of fiscal responsibility and smaller government, as they say they are, you'd figure Republicans would figure out a way to actually balance the assets and liabilities of the United States government, reduce debt, increase income, and balance the budget. You figure debt would be reduced time and time again under Republicans. But yet 49 times they voted to raise it. Except now there's a problem. Just to kind of go over the debt that we owe, there are 5 big countries the United States owes debt to. The highest, which is $1.1 trillion we owe to Japan. Japan owns that debt. Japan owes $1.1 trillion of us. Next up is China, $859 billion. $859 billion, almost a trillion right there. The UK comes in third at $668 billion. Belgium is next at 331, and good old Luxembourg at $318 billion. It's a lot of money. And by my quick math, very quick math on the fly here, 5 countries, we're looking at somewhere around just over $3 trillion we owe to 5 countries. $3 trillion we owe to 5 different countries. One thing I don't blame, or one group of people I won't blame for our ridiculous amount of debt is Democrats or Republicans. It's all of them. They spend. They want their wars. They scream and cry, patriotism, and all they do is spend and spend and spend. Unnecessarily spending. Running up the credit cards and then blaming the other party every 2 years. For midterms, every 4 years for president. That's all they do. It's the same game. Meanwhile, our interest is making Japan rich because Japan has $1.1 trillion that we're waiting to pay them eventually, I guess. But the way to solve this problem is really a way that Republicans at least don't want. It involves raising taxes. It involves cutting spending. Then we'll find ourselves with enough money to pay off the countries that we owe, and then still be in a great shape to actually run this country, have a balanced budget, and do the right things for all Americans. It seems that easy, at least to me. But we know that's not the case. So we played this game. I think we have at this point maybe another week or so before we reach the debt limit. We'll see how negotiations go in the next week. What I suspect is the Speaker of the House is going to cave. He'll have no choice. He doesn't want to be the one in his first real battle with the White House, stubbornly holding off and watching this country default. He doesn't want to be that one. He doesn't want that to be his legacy. So he'll cave. We'll raise the debt ceiling. The hoopla and all that stuff will go away. And then we'll be right back to the same thing. Beating down the pig to get change out of him to spend stuff we don't have. It's the American way. What's in my head is brought to you in part by Diggum Movers, your safe and swift moving company. An A+ rated, one-stop shop, licensed and insured moving company, providing local and long-distance services on the move. For more information, visit their website at www.diggummovers.com or call 1-888-77-DIGGUM. That's 1-888-773-4436. Before I get to the last thing in my head, I know you peeped my shirt. At least I hope you have at this point. I got told about a week or so ago, my t-shirt game is fire right now. Like, it's just fire. I got my travel t-shirts. I got all types of stuff. Any idea I get in my head, I boop, boop, ship me a t-shirt. Or if I see something, boop, boop, order a t-shirt. I actually did have this one made. I actually got a free upgrade. I'm not saying I'm top dog or anything like that, although there's somebody who would say I did, or I am. But got the shirt upgraded to the higher quality print. I don't know if you can hear that. That's a good material right there. But this is my support of Justin Jones and Justin Pearsons of the world. Supporting them. Fighting to save lives. We had this Second Amendment debate in this country. That's not really a debate. It's you're taking our rights versus, no, I'm not trying to take your rights. I'm trying to save lives. You're trying to take my rights. No. I'm trying to save lives. It's a dumb debate. There are more guns in the United States than I think all of the parts of the world combined. Some crazy stat I saw the other day. That's how many guns are actually in the United States right now. More guns than people. Way more guns than people. And it's these types of actions. If you're watching on YouTube or a Spotify video, you can see what I'm doing. But it's these types of actions, fighting for lives, protesting lives, that inch us very, very slowly, but inching us towards creating safer neighborhoods, getting these guns off the street. These guns got here somewhere, people. I mean, I'll let you do the research and figure out how they got here. But the last thing that's on my mind is I've talked about my travel season beginning with my trip to Orlando a couple weeks ago. I think 2 weeks ago, something like that. And it's opening up a stretch of my travel that's coming up. Well, last weekend, I took a trip up to New York to record an episode with Barry Grant Jr., host of All Even Podcast. Now, you actually can see him if you're on Spotify or YouTube. He's actually literally right here over my shoulder on your screen. But that was the image I used for him when he appeared on my podcast last season for one of the two interests. It was actually the same picture, just two different dates, because he appeared on 2 episodes last season. But one thing I also did was I took an opportunity to visit a really nice restaurant that I was treated to and introduced to last year, my birthday, or for my birthday trip, the first night that started my birthday trip, by my Tio. She took me to that restaurant. Amazing food. First time I went, did not realize it was family style. Took a lot of stuff, doggy bags, 2 bags. But I was flying out the next day. Fortunately for me, it was actually really, really cold. And so the bags actually sat in my car while I was on that trip. I think it was a 6-day trip or whatever it was. And it was that cold at home, except the day I flew back. It warmed up to like 50, 55 degrees. And so by the time I got to my car, almost everything was kind of room temperature. But I did eat most of it. The steak, I'm not going to eat a steak that's been sitting out for 4 or 5 hours. But took a trip up to New York. and recorded an amazing episode of All Even Podcasts. You can kind of see it on your screen right now if you're watching, but amazing opportunity. And I'll post a link when I post this episode, and you'll be able to check it out. Check out his podcast, All Even Podcast. Check out the link. Look at his episodes. Look at his shorts. All that stuff. Great production and podcast. But what's stuck in my head is sitting on the other side of preparation and operations, and looking at how multiple voices and personalities came together to make that great production, a great episode, and seeing that in person, honestly got me thinking and putting me back into that question I put out there. I didn't really put it out there publicly, but I put it out there in my little space, in my little world. The idea of having a co-host. I like the banter. I like the creativity that can come from it. And so it's something I thought about actually for this season, decided against it, but it may be something else to think about for next season. It might be time for me to re-examine that, because I like the dynamics. I like the possibilities of things that can be created. Now, don't get me wrong. I love hearing my own voice. I love hearing my own opinion uninterrupted. However, I think it's an opportunity as well to broaden viewpoints and broaden opinions and broaden and expand the conversation beyond just what I see, my point of view. And so it's something I'll think about. Absolutely will. But one thing I'll say again is that Barry Grant Jr. is a good dude. He does a great show, and I was extremely happy to be a part of it. And I urge you to watch, because something very interesting happened before I got to the site for the recording. Something kind of comical, but something real, something absolutely real in this country. And to give you a hint, there's been a few instances lately of people losing their lives or coming very close to it in the same situation I found myself in as I was trying to locate the venue to record last Friday. So check it out. There'll be links on all my social media. And if you already follow me on my social media, you've seen clips already. So I'd say either follow me on social media or clips from or find the link from this episode, and you'll see the episode. Great episode. Again, Barry Grant Jr., thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for the hospitality. And also thank you for the conversations we have outside of both of our recording flashing light. But that's what's in my head. All right, so believe it or not, I am a man in my mid-40s. Like I say, sometimes I'm a man in my mid-40s who feels like a man in his mid-20s. Some days I'm a man in mid-40s who feels exactly like a man in the mid-40s. But aside from that, my story to manhood began around 10. Some people know this. A lot of people who are in my life know more intimate details about me, know the journey I've taken from 10 to manhood, if you will, and beyond. And so there are things that I obviously wish back at 10 I knew then that I definitely know now. The biggest thing I think that I always wished that I knew a long time ago was the proper way to budget. I've made a lot of money in my life. I've spent a lot of money in my life. If I could go back, say 20, 25 years, I'd have put a good 20, 25% aside and just coasted into my 60s and 70s or whatever, however many years I have left. But you live and learn these things, right? And so the reason I'm talking about that is entrepreneur.com. I went up there and did my research for this episode, like I always do. They published an article back in 2022 entitled 6 Things I Tell My 20-Year-Old Entrepreneur Self. Rather than lamenting about getting old, we should celebrate the fact that with age comes wisdom. It's the old adage, right? Age becomes wisdom. So they talk about 6 things. I'm going to briefly talk about them really quickly. The first one is maintaining physical health matters. Now, I've been an athlete for 30 plus years. I've always been in somewhat decent shape. I'm never going to get back to my high school, early college physical shape, but I keep myself in physical shape, still play football, as we all know. But the key to this is how you treat your body daily makes a difference. I've said before in different episodes, and I've talked about myself and some of my difficulties with one of the ones we're going to talk about in a second. But if you aren't there for yourself, it's hard to be there for other people. The second thing they talk about is eliminating stressors. I'm a big proponent of that 5-5-5 rule. I think I talked about it in my first season a podcast, but not allowing the stressors in life to bring you down, hold you down, and keep you down. They say evaluating relationships and things in life that cause stress. Understanding where life is imbalanced can bring focus to what small things need to change to make big differences eventually. It's the crawl, not the sprint, right? The third one, which I admittedly have a extreme difficulty with, is learning to say no. It's not that I don't want to say no. It's just that I feel like if I can and I should, I will. But they say it's okay to say no if something isn't your responsibility or doesn't excite you. And I will tell you, of the six, this struck obviously for the obvious reasons that I never say no. But this struck the most with me because I never thought about the fact that it's okay to say no if it's something that doesn't excite me. Because think about the willingness to do something, the energy, the drive, the determination to get something done, to volunteer. Part of that is the excitement of doing it. Part of the excitement of seeing the other side of your volunteerism, the other side of your giving back. But there are things that you do, responsibilities you take that don't necessarily excite you. And so should you take those things on, or should you delegate or find somebody else, or just simply say no and walk away? The fourth thing is focus on building professional relationships. Now, this is something I learned a long time ago, very early in my teens. My mentors, who I talked about before in a podcast, gave me that knowledge as a young adult, young adolescent, that professional relationships and the circle you keep are pretty important. The thing they talk about is authenticity. They say authenticity is critical. And the way I interpret that is be your natural self to get the people around you who benefit you. Don't create this persona or make up this person that you aren't to get in circles that you want to get to. Let the circles be built naturally. That's how I look at it. The fifth thing is something I have no problem with. One of my favorite football players of all time is Terrell Owens, T.O. And so believe in yourself is the fifth thing. Because if you know anything about Terrell Owens, he loved him some him. Literally his exact quote. But the world is filled with enough naysayers, they say. Don't be one yourself. Believe in yourself. Keep believing in yourself. You'll stumble, you'll fall, pick yourself up, and keep moving forward. On that same note, the last one they talk about is don't listen to the negative noise. Be open to the bad days and know that they won't last, rather than convincing yourself that every single day must be 100% filled with positivity. This takes us all the way back to my 5-5-5 rule. If it's not going to be an issue, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days. Some people say 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months. From now, it's not an issue that you need to hold on to. And so looking at those 6 things, they really all come back to you and how you handle life. And so I'm talking about these things because I want to bring in my guest for this episode, and I'm going to try not to mess it up. Babs Faseesin. I believe that's the correct way. We'll figure out in a second if I butchered it. He is the founder of Cracking the Life Code, a self-help platform that helps individuals gain total life mastery. He also is the author of Cracking the Life Code, Keys to Master Your Mindset, Habits, and Behaviors for Personal Success. He believes that ideas are powerful and are far more connected than they sometimes appear on the surface. He is a conveyor of Inspire Africa Tour. We're going to talk about that. As an entrepreneur and strategy consultant, he has helped over 12,000 entrepreneurs start and grow their business. He's also passionate about education, health, and wellness, investing in human capital, affecting meaningful and lasting change, and personal growth. And lastly, how can you not love this? He enjoys doing new things that challenges how he views the world. With that, Babs, welcome to Dave's Head. How's it going, man?
Hey, Dave, it's going pretty well. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, and thank you for the fantastic work you're doing with your podcast.
No, I appreciate that. So first, before we get into it, did I get the last name right? Because I tried to get it right, and I wrote it down, and we talked about it, and I hope I got it right.
Great job.
Okay. Because listen, I was telling somebody the other day that one of the first things I do when I have my guest on is make sure I ask for the pronunciation of the last name. My last name is Ewings. It's been Ewings, Irwings, Ewings, Edwin, all types of things I get over the years. So I understand difficult first or last names, especially last names. That can be easily mispronounced. So I want to make sure I get it right. So I'm glad I got at least an A- effort.
Thank you so much.
But before we get into it, I know I gave a little small intro for you, but I like to have my guests introduce themselves in their own words. So if you could take a moment to tell the people who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Well, thank you. I'm a strategist, a speaker, and an entrepreneur. Essentially, I am basically the chief strategy officer at Reuters Consulting. And so from a business point of view, you might refer to me as a business leader in the strategy space. On the personal note, I I'm very passionate about personal development, personal growth, and so for that reason, I created Cracking the Life Code, which is really a platform that helps people become 1% better each day, essentially. And on the other hand, I really just use my words to inspire and encourage people, either by writing, which is why I wrote the book Cracking the Life Code, or by public speaking. So I like to refer to myself as a speaker, a strategist, and an entrepreneur.
Okay. So I'm curious, and I'm gonna start right out the gate big, because as I was reading your profile and looking up your website info, the thing that struck me is total life mastery. I'm a perfectionist, and so using the word mastery to me is like, lights flashing, fireworks going off. Because yeah, let's get it. Let's find that mastery zone. So let's start big. What is total mastery? How can I achieve it? Number one. I mean, let's forget my audience for a second. We're just talking to me. I want to achieve mastery. No, seriously. How can everyone achieve that total life mastery? And then you can come back to me. Most importantly, me. How do we get there?
Well, listen. Let's take a few steps backwards. When a child is born, a child does not appear on the planet with a manuscript or a manual that says this is how you navigate life. Typically, children arrive this planet either in the arms of their parents and then in the comforts of the adults in their lives. And so they arrive a blank slate. Very often they begin to pick up signals with which or by which they live their lives ultimately as they grow older. So there isn't fundamentally any manual for navigating life. Question is, can we then understand the right way to do life? Is there a way to do life in a way that we ultimately arrive at a destination that is desirous to us? And that's where total life mastery comes to play. Total life mastery essentially is just mastering the different areas of your life. In my book, Cracking the Life Code, I talked about the 6 areas of life. I mean, you can extend this to so many areas, but for me, I focused on the 6 areas that have been most significant to me as an individual. So I talked about finances, talked about spirituality, I talked about family and relationships, I talked about career and personal growth. And when you put all of these together, personally, if I'm able to master these areas of my life, I believe I've achieved success on my own terms. So total life mastery is understanding or mastering the different areas of our lives. And constantly, question is, how do you even know what area of your life you want to focus on, or what area of your life you need work? So you constantly have to, I use the analogy of a puzzle. You move the puzzle around every now and again. The life wheel, you move that wheel around and see what area is it. Spirituality that needs work? Is it personal growth that needs work? Is it family and relationships that needs work? Is it finances that needs work? And every point in life, we're taking a moment to do what I call realistic self-assessment. Through that, we're able to identify what area needs some work, and we invest in building that area. Now, question is, how do you build that area? How do you gain mastery of that area? First, you expose yourself to resources that help you understand that. I think fundamentally, the very first step to achieving mastery is really the mindset. I've always said that nothing in history has ever been created that was more powerful than the mind of humans. Nothing was more powerful than the human mind. I think the one way to alter the trajectory of our lives is to alter the way we think. So I believe the way we think about every area of our lives can ultimately determine if we would gain mastery in that area of life or not.
Gotcha. So quick follow up. So you talked about, I believe the phrase was realistic self reevaluation. I think was the term.
Realistic self-assessment.
Self-assessment. There you go. And so, still sticking with that mastery. I mean, obviously, those 6 areas you talked about. There's no way to get all 6 perfect. But is there looking at 0 to 100%? Is there a percentage for each that kind of just fits and feels perfect? Feels like you mastered, even though they're not all at 100%.
That's right. Perfection is an illusion. I don't quite believe in that word, perfection. I do believe in growth, though. I believe that we can achieve growth daily. but I don't quite believe in perfection. But what I've done with realistic self-assessment is to just create a scale of 0 to 10, and then you can measure for yourself, because success evolves over time. You know, we grow as we grow. Maybe our goals shift, and so maybe for today at 6 I'm fine. Maybe in another 10 years I need to be at 8 to be fine. So I think it's just a 0 to 10 scale, and constantly you're evaluating and asking yourselves questions. How you doing on a scale of 0 to 10 in this area of life? And I have 3 questions that I often ask to help people, you know, even dig into that further. And these 3 questions are: 1, around contribution. What are my contributions to the larger society in this area of my life? How satisfied am I with this area of my life? And the last question is, what are the opportunities for growth? So when you identify all 3, you can then score or grade yourself between the scale of 0 to 10. Then you determine how much work you need to do.
Now, I'm curious because the whole idea of total life mastery, it's about your life, about mastering the areas of your life. But the first question of those 3 is about contribution to society. So how do you relate contributing to society with improving your life?
Excellent question. Honestly, we don't live in isolation, and in fact, significantly, I believe that the value that we derive in ourselves sometimes comes from our contribution externally. So a person who determines that success is only receiving and acquiring and gathering is not
materials,
exactly material things, which is how society defines success today, which is sad. I mean, definition of success is an entirely different topic, but that's how
don't worry, we're getting there.
that's how society defines success today. But understanding that life is bigger than us, and we live in a world that's way larger than just us as an individual. So whatever we do, I believe, needs to have impact in the larger society. So whilst we're looking to grow as an individual, the why for our growth should not only be I or me alone. It should be, how does it impact the society? My goal is to leave this planet better than I met it, and that would be success for me.
Okay. So talk about the pillars of purpose. What are they? And how do they help you achieve, or I keep coming back to me, how do it help me? But how do we help everyone achieve total life mastery?
Well, purpose is a critical success factor, I think, in life. Many of us go through life from birth to death without ever finding purpose. I think it's important to understand why we're here and what we're here to do. When we get that knowledge and that understanding, life becomes a lot less stressful. So we're able to focus on the things that matter to us based on our understanding of our purpose. And we don't struggle, like you said earlier, to be like anybody else. We just live for who we are, and we express the truth and the authenticity of our being every day because we understand why we are here. So to help achieve purpose, or to help fulfill purpose, I came up with 4 P's. One of them is passion. Now, having understood your purpose, having discovered your purpose, I often like to say that the discovery of purpose is not a guarantee of its fulfillment. So you have to discover, that's great, but then you've got to take it a step further to fulfill your purpose. To do so, you need these 4 pillars, at least in the best of my opinion. One of them being passion. Passion is like fuel. It's like gas to cars. So passion fuels your purpose. If you imagine you're taking a trip, it's called a trip of success, and your purpose is your vehicle. The vehicle will take you to this destination of success. Now, you need to get the vehicle moving. Passion is what gets the vehicle moving. Passion gives purpose some momentum. Passion is what gets the purpose driving further and further. So without gas, you can't go further in life. If you're driving a physical car. So that's what passion does for you. Passion helps you get out of bed every morning, even when you don't feel like it. Passion pushes you in on good days, on bad days. Passion just keeps you going. That's like the fuel that you need to help fulfill purpose. The next one is platform. This is very interesting because many times purpose will never be as impactful as it should be if it is not visible. In fact, I like to say it this way, that when purpose is invisible, impact is limited. When your purpose is invisible, impact becomes limited. In other words, you might be the best singer in the world. If nobody knows of your work, nobody ever heard you sing, your song and your abilities and your talents will not impact anyone. Yeah. So what you want to do is, having discovered your purpose, you want to find opportunities to scale the visibility of your purpose. And to do this, a simple way is to use a platform. I like to give a simple example. If you're a singer, you may never go so far. I mean, for as far as you would love to, if you didn't have a platform. For some people, their platform might be a church choir. For some people, their platform might be American Idols. Some people will take on reality shows, and that would put them on the world stage, and then they can showcase their talents to the rest of the world because there's a platform upon which their talent is sitting. So when you discover your purpose, it's important to find a platform to help magnify the purpose so you can increase your impact with the visibility that you get from your purpose.
Yeah, back in the day, they used to sell mixtapes out of cars.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. Another P that helps to fulfill purpose is people. I like to say that people are like feelers to the potholes on the highway to success. So as you travel through life, there are potholes on the way, and people help you fill those potholes so you can have a smoother journey. And that's why we cannot afford to break or to have poor relationship building skills. We would always need people. That we're not built to live as in isolation. We're built to live as communal beings, and we always need people to help smoothing that journey as we ride through this journey of success. So people are very helpful in helping fulfill purpose. And the last one is place. This is important because place is first mental. A lot of people think I need to physically leave my current location in order to achieve my purpose, in order to fulfill my purpose. Sometimes maybe not. Maybe what we need to do is to shift our mindset. That's the first shift that we probably need to do. Maybe just a shift in your perspective can change your direction from feeling down to feeling excited over the same thing. So I feel like place plays a significant role in fulfilling purpose. Now let's move into the physical place. See, birds don't swim. Fishes don't fly. So if you put a fish in water, it becomes a very beautiful, animal, very beautiful to behold. It's sometimes I watch some beautiful fishes in the aquarium, and I'm just stunned at how magnificent they are in their natural habitat. You pick the same fish and you drop them on land, and the same fish becomes an object of pity. Now, when we are in our natural space of ability, when we're in our natural habitat, we flourish effortlessly. So what you want to do, having identified your purpose, is to find a place that's natural to you. That way you can flourish seamlessly, effortlessly. A lot of people are in the wrong career today, and they struggle through this career day and night. They hate the job they do, but it pays the bill, and so they have to wake up every day and do the same thing, and they hate it. Now, there's only so much that you can do for yourself in that environment. What we often need to do is find a place that's natural to our skills, that's natural to our abilities, that's natural to our purpose, and we will just swim like fishes do when we find ourselves in that natural environment. That's why place is very important. Having found your purpose, you've got to find a place that's natural to you so you can flourish in that place.
And I'd imagine if you have your purpose and you're in that place and space that drives or helps to, it's easier to drive your passion. And therefore, I think the fourth one was platform. The platform just feels natural. You'll figure out a way to get it out there more so than if you're waking up every day, you hate your job, you don't care about the platform, you don't care about people knowing your abilities because you're just down every day. You're struggling just to even get up and go every single day. And that's external to what you're feeling just naturally every day.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, we go through a lot of things in life, ups, downs, some downs for some people are way harder, whether it's life, business, career, relationships, and it's something that you talk about, which is starting over. And so starting over in those four forms, life, business, career, relationships, what's the key to successfully starting over? And of those four, life, business, career, relationships, which of the four is the hardest to start over and climb out of, if you will?
Frankly, I mean, I guess it's different for everyone. What becomes the hardest might be different for different individuals. But fundamentally, coming out of, starting over is often very difficult, and that's why many people never get to their ultimate destination because of the fear of starting over. It's also the reason a lot of people are stuck in whatever they are doing today, maybe stuck in a career, stuck in a relationship, stuck in a business, because hey, I put in 40 years, 30 years into this business. Where do I go from here? I have invested 20 years of my life in this career. Where do I go from here? This is all I know. But I often like to say it's not the lack of resources that stops us. It's the lack of resourcefulness. It's the ability to just sit back and say, hey, okay, for a moment, let me just think within me and ask myself realistic questions like, what else do I have that I can put to use at this point in my life? And it's always okay to start over. In fact, starting over is helpful because you failed before, and so you've learned lessons from your failure, and you bring those valuable lessons to this new beginning. In this new beginning, you're coming to a new beginning with wisdom. You're coming to a new beginning with a lot of knowledge. You're coming to a new beginning with a lot of understanding and information, and so you have the ability to craft something new from scratch. How would you do it? If I had to start life over again, maybe in high school, oh my God, with all that I know now, I'll do a lot of things differently. So think about it that way. If you have to start over, I mean, a lot of people are, we're ashamed of of being judged, the fear of being judged. We're ashamed of, we're afraid of what the family, friends,
having our scars be visible.
Exactly. We don't want to expose those scars. And thanks for saying that. My second book is titled Naked, which is really talking about just opening them up and letting the world see them, because as opposed to seeing those scars as things to be ashamed of, they really are badges of honor, really, if we look at them. At the end of the day, again, it's about perspective. You either see it as a thing to be ashamed of, or you see it as a badge of honor, because this is all you've been through, and this is what brought you to where you are today. And I think all of the lessons, regardless, are valuable to where you are today. Now, starting over is always difficult, always painful, but the one thing you need to do is take action. I think it's Tony Robbins that says we can change our lives all by taking one simple action. So if you want to start over, you're thinking about starting over, just do it. Just start. Take one simple action. I like to say, do it. Become 1% better. What do I need to do today? All I need to think about is today. And if you can encourage yourself to take that one action, you're on your journey. You just started your journey. It can only get better from there on. One step, one action.
Gotcha. And so this is about adjusting to life, right? But let's back it up a little bit and talk about a life plan. Before all the failures, before we went through the ups and downs, somewhere hopefully we had a plan. And you talk about life plans. So what is a life plan, and how do you go about designing your life plan? Assuming we all got that information that we needed to do one at the beginning of life, what will we do? How will we do it?
See, I'm a strategist by profession, so I just bring my knowledge of strategy in the business field, and I bring it to real life. And strategy actually as a field started off in military. So you can apply strategy across multiple areas of life. So fundamentally what I do is I use the same tools of strategy in the business field in my life as a person. So you start off with a goal, a huge, goal objective, and you break this goal down into milestones, and you further break them down into either actions or behaviors or habits or mindset. These are the key pillars that can help you achieve that plan. So you start off by setting a huge, whatever goal you want to set, and then you build milestone to achieve that goal in whatever area, be that relationship, career, business, whatever it is. We always start with a goal. I think it's Simon Sinek that talks about starting with the why. So once you identify the core of your why and you set your objective, you can now build out a milestone that leads ladder up to that goal. And then within those milestones, you can create opportunities for you to check, to reflect on how you're doing. Maybe set up opportunities maybe once a month, once a quarter, to just do that, what I call the realistic self-assessment, and see how you're faring. And then you can, now ultimately, to achieve that life plan really comes down to three things. Comes down to mindset, habits, and behaviors. Mindset, habits, and behaviors. If we get all three right, I believe we can ultimately achieve our life plan. Now, not to say that life would not throw curveballs here and there. There'll be bad days. There'll be things that didn't go right. My mom was very excited to be the first person to lay her hands on the copy of my book, but before the book was launched, mom passed away. So life happens, things happen. Not to say those would not come our way, but once we have the right mindset, the right behaviors, and the right habits, we can take on anything that life throws at us, also with help from friends and professionals.
Gotcha. And before I follow up that, my condolences and sorry to hear about your mother passing.
Thank you.
I do want to, so something you said during that answer was the why, and how important the why of that goal is so important. Can you touch on that the power of that why component? Because the way I look at it, right? Personally, I want to open up a beach bar restaurant somewhere on some island and retire. That's great. So I don't want to work a 9 to 5. That's not my why. My why is I want the twilight years of my life to be spent cooking, having, socializing, meeting people, different people every day, just enjoying life, which is one of my mantras. Just enjoy life because life should be fun. That's my why. I want to actually fulfill my mantra for the whatever days I have left. Why is the why so important to achieving goals?
Frankly, starting off with the why and really just nailing down that why is critical, because there would be distractions. There will be so many things along the line, but that why just keeps you grounded. That's that's the anchor. That's what keeps you. And so on days when you're ready to quit, it's that why that just keeps you going. It's the why that you go back to, and it just keeps you completely grounded. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who come up to me for coaching and they tell me, well, I just want to make money. Money is not enough why for wanting to be an entrepreneur. What's a deeper reason for which you want to be an entrepreneur? What's your deeper why? What's deeper than just wanting to make money? Because you can make money. You don't really need to be an entrepreneur to make money. You can make money in other ways, but what's driving you? I think nailing down that core passion or that core desire that's driving a decision often is what keeps you going on bad days. So if you realize that, well, for me personally, I want to be that inspiration to some kid on the backside of the wilderness in Africa who says, well, if this guy who was born on the same soil as me, who drank the same water that I drank, who lived here in this devastation, can rise to this peak in his career, then I can. So that's my inspiration. That's my why. That's why I wake up every morning, and regardless of how I feel, I get out of bed and I go do what I do, because I know someday some kid's going to say, well, if he can do it, then I can. Okay, so I think it's that why that goes beyond how we feel. It goes beyond, what we're currently experiencing. It's just that anchor that keeps us grounded so we can continue to go.
Gotcha. No, that makes total sense, because, you've talked about whether it's the pillars, the life plan. all those things will have. There's not a single thing you mentioned that won't have stumbling blocks, potholes, to use your analogy, and the why to get up. Think about Creed, the movie Creed, when the very first one, when the character is running in the desert and he falls down, and he says, "Get up, get up, get up." That motivation to get up, that will and fight and power to get up, comes from the why am I even doing this in the first place? Why am I out here sweating my ass off in the desert? Because I'm trying to win this fight. And so, circling back to people and people in your life, people in your circle, networking professionally, just generally people. You talk about human capital, and specifically, you talk about investing in human capital. What exactly does that mean? And the second part is, how do you evaluate the ROI, or return on investment, when you're choosing to invest or not invest in people?
Well, I mean, investing in people is on so many different levels, whether it be business or in your personal life. I think primarily people are what makes a business or an organization. And so if you invest in the people, you can never go wrong, because that's probably the brain capital of your organization. I'm a strategist, and really what I do is cerebral, is from my brain. And so if my brain is solid and in a good place, I can deliver better results. It doesn't matter. I don't move things from one place to another. Ultimately, if an organization believes in its people and invests in its people, it's the people who carry the business forward. So that's definitely a simple, straightforward thinking for investing in people. But at an individual level, it becomes important to invest in your relationships, your networks, and your circles. I've seen many times on the internet that, the saying that your network is your net worth. And so it's important to invest in those. I mean, you want to surround yourself with people who are going in the same direction as you. They might not be in your immediate environment, because you might be a first generation to be doing whatever it is you're doing. So that's the point where you need to step out and go invest in finding the people who are what they call your tribe, people who are heading in the same direction as you, people who can inspire you, who can encourage you, and maybe help you along the line. So that investment, for me, it involves professional networking events. It involves just going out every once in a while to industry events, places where I can meet people of my pair, or people who are probably several steps ahead of me in my industry, or people who are just generally in my industry, and just network with them, interact with them, understand what's going on in the industry, maybe learn new things from them, and constantly keep those types of people, those types of network, safe in my in my vault, because I'll need them. Now, why do you need to invest in those types of? You don't want to wake up one day and have a need, and that's the first time you think of, reaching out to someone. They're going to be like, okay, where you been this whole time? Now you have a need. And so I like to just, do coffee meetups every now and then, just chat. There's no need. I don't have any request. I just wanted to catch up, just want to touch base. Just see, I have mentors. I have people who also coach me. And so I reach out to them every once in a while. We have coaching sessions. We have mentoring sessions. We spend some time together. Now, that's how you invest and build trust. As you continue to invest in those types of networks, you're building trust, and you're creating some, social currency that you might tap into later in the future. So it's very important that we invest that way, so you're not left, with no help, nobody around you to support, to help, to be there for you on days when you need that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was sitting here as you're talking, trying to hold on to these points that you're making to follow up. So I got three things I've come up with. The first I'll take is the easiest. That article that I led in this segment with, one of the things they talked about when they talked about relationships is reevaluating periodically the people in your circle. And they actually followed up, but I didn't mention it. They followed up talking about that person who's always negative, always finds some reason to bring something you're doing down, or you go to them for something and they find a way to critique it. Every time, they never support you. the opposite side of that being that the only time they reach out to you is when they need something, which is something you touched on. Building those relationships, even if you do need something that may be a big ask or small ask, if you have that relationship already established and built and nurtured and groomed, it makes it a lot easier to have that ask, and it makes it a lot easier for that fulfillment to happen for your request. The second thing I'll say really quickly is depending on your industry and depending on what you're trying to do, I definitely suggest taking up golf lessons. There are a lot of conversations with people who have a lot of connections at charity golf tournaments. You just go out to golf and you get paired with some random person. I did this 2 days ago. Yesterday, matter of fact, today's Monday. Yesterday, I went golfing with a good friend of mine. We got paired up with two people. We wound up talking during the round. We wound up exchanging numbers. Two completely different industries than we're in. But we made a connection, a networking connection. And I forgot the third thing that fast because I was trying to focus on keeping it in my head. But talking about relationships and life plans, total life mastery, and we've kind of talked from beginning to end and everything between. The one thing that we haven't dived into really or dove into is the real definition of success. How do you define all these things we've talked about? You've gotten through all these potholes. You made these plans. You increased, to 90% here or 9/10 there. What's success? How do you define success ultimately?
Well, for me, and I like to say that success is actually deeply personal, and so everyone's got to define success for themselves, and not let Hollywood define success for them. Success for me personally, at its core, is about meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. It's about meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. I do believe very strongly that finding meaning in life helps to just ground you. I believe that identifying your purpose and fulfilling your purpose is significant to success in life. And lastly, just understanding that having found my purpose and found meaning in life, that I am just fulfilled at what I do and who I am, it's primarily how I define success. So it's about meaning, purpose, and fulfillment.
Okay.
So none of
so
these
essentially
so
oh no, go ahead.
So none of these really has any physical or tangible, expression, and that's really because at the core of my being, I prioritize the things that money cannot buy over the things that money can buy. I want to be rich in my mind, even if I'm poor in my purse. I'd rather choose to be rich in my mind than be poor in my than be rich in my purse and be poor in my mind. So fundamentally, all of my responses to you, if we continue to talk for another hour or two, they would come down to these simple things that I talk about, either behaviors, habits, mindsets, because those are the things that I believe are core to success for anyone. I mean, very often people mistake success for the symbols of success. Oftentimes, when people are unable to achieve success in the real sense of what success is, they settle for the symbols of success. And that's why they often chase material things, because those material things are symbols of success. A house in Hollywood, a Maserati, a Ferrari, luxury cars, luxury homes, and all of those are symbols of success, but they aren't exactly truly success in the real sense of success. So when people cannot attain success in the real sense of success, they go after the symbols of success that make them come across as though they are successful, and they forget that you could own a rosary. It doesn't quite make you a Catholic. You can have a Maserati. It does not quite make you successful, because those are symbols of success and not success in its real sense.
Yeah, and two things. The way I look at that is actual success is long-term, sustainable, where the symbols of success are just temporary. You can lose that money. You can crash that car. But if you have success, you have the capacity to go buy another car. Hopefully you wouldn't be that frivolous, but you have that capacity to go buy another car. You have capacity to actually wear what you want to wear, travel where you want to travel. Whereas the symbol of success, you'll go on one vacation, and now you're trying to make that up for the next 6 months to pay that off. That's the way I look at it.
That's right.
But all the things you just talked about in that answer, the word that popped in my head probably the first 20 seconds, and I worked really hard to hold on to it, is character. And I had that was supposed to be my last question before the question I'm going to get into the second. But one more question: how does character play into all this? How does character play into your life journey, your life plan, and the possibility of you actually achieving success?
Frankly, you might not be remembered for a lot of things that you did in life. One thing you may never be forgotten for is your character. Very often, character speaks for us when we're not in the room. When you walk, it's like walking on the beach. All the steps that you left behind you really are symbols, or they are signages of your character. And that's how I view character. So it's like sowing a seed on the soil, on every soil that you touch. You're just leaving the seed in there. Now, you might not be remembered for your name, but you might be remembered for your integrity. You might not be remembered for the presentation you gave, but you might be remembered for the character that you presented with. So I think character plays a significant role. My parents, very early in life, started with that whole thinking around character, and they instilled that, belief in me that a good name is worth more than $1 million. That's really what they would often say, that you wanna build a good name, you wanna live with character, you wanna live with integrity, such that you're known to say what you mean and mean what you say. And so when you're not there, your character speaks for you. So character plays a significant role in our life's journey. And I know that character these days is probably something that you would fight really hard to come by, just because we feel there's always a need to take shortcuts. We feel there's always a need to do something on the other end, here and there, to make up for whatever it is we're chasing in life. But really, I think a man of character is more important to me than the richest man in the world.
Gotcha. And I'll make an observation really quick. We've known each other for about 45 minutes. The length of this interview, plus or minus 3 minutes or so before we started recording. You in that answer, I want to say maybe it was 2-3 minutes long. You gave about 10 examples of character. Like the passion around that word. I don't know if the audience picked up on it, but it's pretty evident that there's a passion around that word character. And I want to say the next to last example you gave, you talked about your parents and what they instilled in you. And I keep saying I'm trying to get to my last question, but things just keep popping into my head. And so talk about your parents. I know you touched on the fact that you lost your mom, but talk about your parents and the, I guess, foundation that they gave you to get you to where you are and to that path, on that path to success.
Well, thank you. This is one thing I've never had to do on a podcast. I've never really had to talk about my parents primarily. I mean, every now and again, I'll talk about my mom being the first child to African parents. Was a very, very interesting experience. Both parents had an incredible idea about 40 years ago on how they want to raise their kids. And having 3 boys in Africa at a time when it was a lot of devastation, it was a lot of just, poverty, lack and all of that, they needed to do something that they believed would help their boys become responsible adults in the society and ones that can take care of themselves in the future. And so they set up really high standards for us. We had to perform well in school. We had to be responsible kids in society, which ultimately would become responsible adults. And so they did not play when it came to building character. Character building was primarily the core of my family. It was all my parents stood for. It was just building character, living with integrity. So we learned so many different values as we grew up, and family was primarily everything for us. So it was about family. We learned that, listen, you can lose everything else in the world, but if you have your family, you're still fine. And so we grew up knowing that family is primarily the core of our unity. That's what brings us together, and that's what continue to hold us. So I'll tell a very interesting story. If you know anything at all about African parents, only 3 professions exist. It's law, it's medicine, and engineering. And so if you have 3 kids, that's it. Natural selection. Their career is just chosen for them naturally. So if you have a brother who's an attorney and you have one who's an engineer, then you believe that you are certainly going to be the medical doctor. So for that reason, I studied clinical biochemistry in college with hopes of studying medicine. But then I found love for business and for what I do today. And so I had to break that news to my parents, and that broke their heart. It was the first time in my life that I had to do something that was against the will of my parents. That was difficult. This was right after college. It was difficult. But then I was already doing a lot of public speaking. I was doing a lot of, personal growth and personal development. And I was growing into the man that I really am supposed to be. And I'm getting aware of, living for me and not, what my parents want and all that. So I had to confront that first big challenge of my life of, doing something for the first time that's against the will of my parents. That didn't go well. I can tell you that conversation did not go well.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Ultimately, my dad said to me that you're going to spend the rest of your life trying to prove to me that there's so much more you could do for yourself in whatever career of your choosing than medicine that I really want for you. And I said, okay, I'll take that as a challenge. And so I took that as a challenge. If there's anything people like to say about me is I don't run away from challenges. I confront challenges head on. And so I said, well, it's good. This is an interesting challenge. Let's see what we can do. And so I started building my career in business field, in consulting, in strategy, and I continued to grow in my career. And I'm very proud of where I'm at today. 4 years ago, I decided to take a doctoral study. And so I went back to school to study for my doctorate degree, and I'll be completing that this year. So I can hand that back over to my dad and be like, hey, finally, you got a doctor behind my name. Can I go to sleep now?
Can I relax?
Yeah. But then I did that really for a different reason for me. But I'll be happy if that makes up for, my scene of over 20 years ago. Yeah. So
it was all worth it.
Yes, definitely. But I would never trade my childhood for anything. I would not trade the impact of my parents for anything. From faith to character to integrity, they instilled everything in me. And I think that's probably what's propelled me through all of my adult life, because I hear my father's voice in my head every time. I hear my mom's voice in my head every time. They're not with me. Mom's passed. But then I still hear their voices at the back of my head. No, you can't do that. That's not who we are. No, you can't quit. That's not who we are. We're not quitters. We are fighters, and I remember all of these things. That's why it's important when we have kids that we share all of these information with them. Whether or not we think they're listening, sometime in their life, those words will echo in their ears, and they'll remember everything we said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important to instill the importance of the why as well. And I think your parents definitely did that.
That's right.
Even though, you diverged from the path of choice, but it was about the why, and the passion, your why got you down that path. And, I think you said later this year that doctorate, getting that PhD is it's going to be well worth it. Little speed bumps along the way.
That's right.
But, yeah.
That's right.
All right. So last question. And let's talk about your book. Cracking the Life Code, Keys to Master Your Mindset, Habits, and Behaviors for Personal Success. Talk about the genesis of that book. What was the reason you wrote it? And what do you hope readers get from reading this book?
I was about 10 when I ran into the room one day and I met my mom crying. And I asked her why she was crying. She told me she had received the bad news from her mom and she was not in a place to help her mom. That broke my heart. As a young kid, seeing my mom cry broke my heart. And I made a decision, as young as I was, that I'll do everything within my power to build a life that allows me to provide help for my family whenever they need one.
Mm.
That was when I started this whole journey of wanting to understand what else life had to offer. I believed there had to be more to life than the environment where I was being raised. I believed there had to be more to life than my experiences, the experiences that surrounded my childhood. So I started exploring what exactly is out there. What else can I do for myself? What are the opportunities beyond my immediate reach? And so I started to read. I'm so blessed to have a librarian mother who loves a lot of books. And so she brought home any book I wanted to read. She would find me a book. And so I exposed my mind to a lot of reading. As a child, I was very into my thoughts. I was a loner child. I was an introverted kid. And so I did a lot of thinking, a lot of reading in my bed. Then I found out that the one thing I needed to do to change my life and the trajectory of my life at that time was really to shift my mindset. And so I began to find resources that helped to build my mindset. That was when my whole journey of personal growth and personal development started. At 17, I hosted my first conference. It had over 2,000 people. And so I continued that way because I was just looking for my community. I was looking for people like me who were interested in finding a life that's better than the one that we lived at the time. And so when I got into college, I continued the same thing. I was reading. In fact, I believe that most of my pocket money for college went into buying books. When I was leaving college, everybody was trying to pack their clothing, their shoes, their sneakers, and all of that. I was trying to pack my books. I had about 4 suitcases full of books that I had bought over the 4 or 5 year period that I was in college. Wow. I read a lot. And then if you know what it means, if you know any biochemistry student, they would tell you biochemistry is a very difficult course to study. So I was studying for biochemistry on the one hand during the day, and at night I was reading personal development books, personal growth books. I was reading a lot, just investing in my mind. And so after college, I began the reality of life. I began to live the things that I read in college. And I made mistakes. I failed here. I failed in relationship. My first business failed. And, but I kept learning from all of those experiences. So after 20 years of learning, failing, trying, starting over, and all of those, I figured the best thing I could do for myself and the generations that would come after me is to put all of my lessons into this manuscript and call it a book titled Cracking the Life Code. My goal is that someone will lay their hands on this book and they would probably have a head start and they would not have to make many of the mistakes that many people make. They might be able to identify their purpose earlier, and so they would cut out all of the distractions of life, and that's my hope, and that they'll be able to build a life plan that helps them achieve a more flourishing and fulfilling life. That's really why I wrote the book.
And your why for that book, and what you hope that the reader gets from it, goes back to those 3 questions. And the first question that I followed up on, I said about the community first, and you said yeah, and that's kind of what that book is about. You want to help someone learn from all the pitfalls, all the potholes, to use your analogy, all the things you went through to avoid those. Kind of take the express lane a little bit towards that success. That's a great reason.
That's right. It's my hope and my desire that someone picks this book and they learn something from the different areas of life that I touched on, and hopefully they become at least 1% better.
Gotcha. And real quick, where can they purchase the book or get a copy of the book?
The book is actually available on Amazon, and I think it's probably on all continents now. So you can access Cracking the Life Code, and you can get it on crackingthelifecode.com as well. So it's on Amazon anywhere.
Okay. All right, Bap. So that's the end of the Q&A, and now we're going to move to my favorite segment with my guests called First Thoughts. But First Thoughts is brought to you in part by SRA Solutions, simple solutions for complex problems. For over 15 years, SRA Solutions has provided today's solution to prevent tomorrow's problem. SRA Solutions will provide you effective, efficient, robust, and reliable business intelligence, application and website design, PC support services, so much more. For more information, check out their website at www.sresolutions.org. So, Babs, the way first thought works is I give you a word or a phrase. The idea is what's your first thought. For those tuning in or listening for the first time, like I always say, shame on you, but I'm happy you're here. Babs, as he can co-sign, is not provided this beforehand. Otherwise, it kind of ruined the first thoughts thing. I kind of do this every episode. Try to explain it the best way I can. It's never the same. So, Babs, are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So, the first thought, entrepreneurship. What's your first thought?
Well, I mean, it's not exactly going to be easy, but it's often worth it.
Okay. And feel free to elaborate as much or as little as you want to. I like to throw up a softball one, for the first one.
Yeah, I mean, typically, entrepreneurship is the ability. So, as humans, we have the ability to create, to invent, to create. And I think entrepreneurship allows you to leave that authentic ability, innate ability to create something out of nothing very often. And I think it's powerful. So, it's a journey, not for everybody, to be honest, not for everybody, for a few, but it's going to be tough, it's going to be rough, it's going to be difficult, but oftentimes it is always worth it.
Gotcha. And that kind of leads right into the second first thought, which is vulnerability. What's your first thought?
Listen, we've got to be naked. Really, if you want to access the depth of love, the depth of relationship, the depth of even leadership, you've got to be open. You've got to be open to sharing your scars, to sharing yourself, sharing your vulnerabilities with the world. I like to say that vulnerability is actually a tool for accessing the deepest parts of relationships. So you cannot go to the deepest ends of your relationship until you're willing to be vulnerable. And I think also, and these types of relationships can be, could be sexual relationship, could be manager-employee relationship, but the best leaders in the world are leaders that are vulnerable with the people they lead. So vulnerability is critical either for leadership or for relationships.
Gotcha. And 100% true. So last first thought, and you kind of danced all over it in the first two. So I'm gonna give it anyway. Usually I try to come up with one on the spot, but I'll stick with my third one that I intended. Your authentic life. What's your first thought?
It's your best life. Really, your authentic life is your best life. There couldn't be a better life than your authentic life. Very often, authenticity is in conflict with acceptance. Psychologically, it's a need that we have, the need to either stay authentic to ourselves or the need for acceptance. Very often when you choose acceptance, then you forego authenticity. And sometimes when you choose authenticity, you might struggle with acceptance because you might not fit into certain blocks. But I think the best way to live is to live your authentic life. So authenticity is critical and it's important.
Okay, I definitely agree with that. So one quick thing. So this season, I started a new segment I call TO First Thoughts. And so what TO First Thoughts is instead of me asking you a first thought, I've given the power to my guests to ask me a first thought, anything that we've talked about or anything of your choosing. The idea behind this is one of my really, really great friends who I call TO. We call each other TO. And she came up with this, and so I ran with it, and it's been incredibly successful. So, Babs, what's your first thought for me? Anything we've talked about, or anything you want to find out? Just get a first thought on.
Success.
Success. My first thought with success is happiness, pure happiness. For me, my success, like I talked about, is my goal to retire on an island with a restaurant and meeting different people every day. That's pure happiness to me. Doing and I say happiness and freedom, doing what I want when I want. And part of that is actually being around people, being around, making joy, creating joy, experiencing joy. And, I'm a big proponent of not wasting time. And so the time that we have, I always say time is our most precious commodity. One of the things I would not like to have my last moments thinking about is not doing something that I wanted to do. And so getting to that point where I can have the freedom to choose to do what I want to do, have this restaurant, meet new people, all these things, that's ultimately my success. And so that's what I think of.
Wow. That's powerful. An Australian nurse did a research where she wanted to write a book, and in this book, she was talking to people on their deathbed, and she asked them one question: "What was your biggest regret?" And they said very, very often, most of the responses was not doing the things they wish they could have done. And so yeah, they go to their deathbed, regretting never doing the things they really wanted to do. So
Yeah, and like I said, one of the things I say all the time is, time is our most precious commodity. I don't like wasting time. I don't like, not doing things in a time period. I'm not a big sleeper. I'm working on that somewhat, sort of. But in my waking moments, I'm going to do the things that make me happy, do the things that I enjoy to do the things, like you said earlier, you're passionate about.
Yep.
And so if I'm not doing those things, that's where I feel I'm wasting my time. And so to getting back to success, if I'm not wasting my time, if I'm using time the way I want to, that's success to me.
Yep. Time wasters are life wasters, because time is life. So, yeah.
Yep. All right, Babs, I do want to thank you for stepping in Dave's head. This conversation was amazing. I think my audience will absolutely love the topics we talked about and the gems that you dropped. Before I let you go, as always, I'd like for my guests to take a moment. If you want to promote anything or talking about anything, feel free to do so now.
Well, honestly, I would really appreciate as many people as possible who get the opportunity to lay their hands upon Cracking the Life Code book, read and go through the exercises at the back of the book. I invested a lot of my time in those exercises because I do believe that the books that have impacted me the most are the books that actually led me to commit to action. And so I wanted to ensure that I wrote a book that helps my reader to commit to action, because action is the right thing to do when you're looking to make changes in life. So it's my goal and my hope that as many people who lay their hands on it can alter the course of their lives and shift their perspectives and become better people for themselves, for their families, and society at large.
Absolutely. And once again, it's on Amazon.com, and your website is
crackingthelifecode.com.
crackingthelifecode.com. All right, Babs, thanks for stepping in Dave's head, man. Take care of yourself.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's both go forth and have some great success.
That's right. Thank you.
My favorite segment of my podcast is my GRIN, which stands for Great Reason to Be in Love with Now. So if you follow me socially, you know that my travel season, quote, quote, has officially begun with my trip to Orlando about 2 weeks or so ago, and then continue with my New York trip that I discussed earlier last weekend. Next week, it resumes with a guy's trip. Now, how do I put this? It's a guy's trip with about 16 guys golfing. So it's actually 2 groups of 8. I am in 1-8 group, and I happen to find out about the other 8 group, which has other guys that I know. And so I'd say out of the 16, I probably know 10, 11. And so there'd be 5 that I don't know. We're going to take a trip to the southern eastern, south, mid-eastern part of the United States to go do some golfing, having a good time, fellowshipping, all that stuff. But while we're all grown men, I thought it'd be great to talk about some of the don'ts on a guy's trip. Now, why is this a great reason to be in love with now? As we go through life, we find ourselves in a daily grind. We find ourselves family responsibilities, job responsibilities, other obligations, trips we got to take, plus ones we got to be. And for those on YouTube and Spotify, that was my arm being a +1. But all these things that are part of our daily grind. If you're like me, I go from calendar event to calendar event to calendar event. Literally today was one of those days. But guys' trips are a great way to escape. And I don't use the term escape in a negative light, just more of a descriptive word. But to get away or break free, and these are all descriptions I'm using that are really bad. The point I'm trying to make is that guys' trips are that temporary timeout from the daily grind of responsibilities of your life, whether it be, if you're a single man like me, just grinding away for work in the organizations I'm a part of, and even this podcast. If you're a married man, it might be the family, the household, the kids running around, all these things. And so guys trips are opportunities to go let loose, chill with the boys, talk about the good old days, play some cards, smoke some cigars, drink some scotch, whatever. And it's an opportunity to also bond as men. And I don't know, I've never been on a girls trip, so I obviously don't know how the bonding happens and if it does the same way. But when guys get together, we're bonded by the events and stories that are created from these long weekends or these whatever the duration is. And it's an opportunity to make new connections. Like I talked about with Babs, it's an opportunity to foster and form some of these networking opportunity connections that can last a long time. There's a reason that I know so many people in these two groups of 8, because these connections have been made on trips like these, on fellowshipping opportunities like these. But there are things that can derail trips like this as well. And so while I don't think any of these things will happen, I do want to talk about some of them. And so there's Walter's World, where I found this list. It's a website by a family of 4 who have traveled the world, and they want to give back travel advice. They don't want to be like the cookie cutter people who jump off of cliffs and go skydiving and do all this stuff. They want to be the people, or talk about the things that they did that are way beyond the norm, or way beyond the cookie cutter stuff. And so in 2020, they published an article entitled "What Not to Do," and not all caps, all cap words. What not to do on a guy's trip. And they gave 15 things. I'm not going to go through all 15 because some of them, like, this is just dumb. I don't need to be told not to do this. And so I came up with 8 things out of the 15 that I felt were pretty relevant and should be discussed. Very valid things, I'll say. The first one is, don't assume everyone has the same budget. Now, to me, this falls in the category of duh. And the reason I say duh is the people I travel with. And again, this is me being expressive of my experience with traveling with people. And I don't do groups that often. Trust me. Listen, I will go places by myself just because I don't need the burden of groups sometimes, or even pieces of that group. But assuming people don't have the same budget is kind of one of those duh things, because if you're there for a long weekend, if you're there for a week, there are going to be people who want to do something every night, go out, hit a club, drink, whatever. And there are going to be people who want to just stay home and chill. And so whether it's financial based or not, or if it's that they just don't want to do this activity, or they feel like it's corny, or they're fasting, whatever, we should never go into a situation where a group and we're all like, okay, everybody's budget is we're going to spend $2,000 this weekend. Nobody should ever think that. And that's why I put it in the category of duh. Which goes to my next one, which also is a duh. Don't assume everyone wants to do the same thing. Duh. Why would anybody assume that? That's like saying we're going to plan the entire trip. We're doing this at 8 o'clock on Monday. We're doing this at 4 o'clock on Monday. We're doing this at 10:30 on Monday. Like, no, nobody's going to want to do that. Nobody's going to want to do what you planned out every day or all the time or whatever. Now, I feel like this is an important one. The third one, don't forget to bring cash. Now, I don't put this in the category of duh. I put this in the category of, yeah, don't forget to bring cash. Because while sure, you may have set aside money on a card, or you may want to get some points if you spend on this card while you're down there, whatever. You never know when you might just need a quick $60. Or maybe you're going out to eat, and it might just be better if everybody just pays in cash. So maybe you pay $40 instead of everybody whipping out their cards and they're like, it's a 2-card max or something like that crazy. Bring $3, $4, $5, $6, $800, whatever you feel like would benefit you. Or the other thing is, put your entire budget in cash. Your entire budget for the trip. Take it out of the bank. Take it with you. Don't use your cards. And if you run out of cash, now you have to be the adult and say, do I want to spend more, or am I just done? Now, one of the things I think is really important, don't forget to bring a deck of cards. And deck of cards is a specific thing that they're referencing, but I say don't forget to bring those opportunities to fellowship and chill, whether it's dominoes, whether it's a deck of cards, whether it's some other game that you have. Don't forget to bring those type of opportunities as well, because guys sitting around playing some spades or guys sitting around playing some poker, smoking cigars and have some scotch, that's kind of a cool thing. And so you can bring some chips, which, by the way, I'm bringing my chips. I'm bringing some cards just in case, that type of stuff want to, break out. Hey, let's put 50 up. Let's play some let's play some poker. Winner take all. I'm going to get my money for the next 2 days from that poker tournament. You never know. To gambling and some other activities, the next one, don't get arrested. I don't know about the people you travel with, obviously, because I don't know who's listening and I don't know the context of your travel. But I don't usually travel with people who have to worry about getting arrested. Now, do I know some people who could find themselves in situations where they might potentially get arrested? Sure. Could it possibly happen with anybody, regardless of who I go with? Sure. It's a small likelihood, though. Don't get arrested is pretty common sense. I'm not going to put it in the category of duh, because you never know. You might need to tell somebody, dude, he didn't mean it. Please, just don't do it. Don't ruin your trip over this clown. You might need to do that with some people. On the next note, don't assume word won't get out. Now, what does that mean? Don't be out there embarrassing yourself, embarrassing your family in a world of technology where all a good 15, 20, 3,000 people need to do is pick up their phone and start recording. And next thing you know, you're on Twitter, you're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, your family sees it, your daughter sees it, your son sees it, your mother, your father sees it, and now you out there Freaknik 2.0. VHS tapes be damn, you're on Blu-ray at this point. You're out there shaking your ass, making an embarrassment of your family. Don't assume word won't get out. So don't do anything you would think if somebody somewhere could feel disrespected by your actions, probably shouldn't do it. If you're married, probably shouldn't disrespect your wife. If you have children, probably shouldn't do something that could be perceived as embarrassing to them. That's all. The next to last one is don't feel you have to invite everyone. Yeah. Absolutely. Look, there are people you are very comfortable traveling with. And there is nothing wrong with that subset of people you just don't think of first to travel with. It's okay. You have 50 friends. Say you only feel like traveling with 20 of them. The other 30 will just have to get over it. If you don't feel comfortable traveling with them because they're a great friend, but they're not like travel great. You never got that vibe from them that they would be okay on a trip with you. Now, there's some people who I've traveled with for the first time. It's a trial thing. Look, we might do it again, we might not. But to me, it all starts with a trial. We got to go somewhere for a long weekend. We got to do like an overnight. We got to do baby steps, because I'm not going to a different state with you and you show your ass. I'm damn sure not going international with you and you show your ass. We got to do baby steps. Start with a little weekend, start with a little trip here and there, and figure it out from there. Last but not least, I think it's something that's actually important, but I think in the context of this, it kind of falls into the category of, yeah, you definitely need to do this, but, and you'll see why. The next one is don't forget to call home. Now, yeah, when you get down there or arrive or whatever, reach out to people who you would find them being concerned if they don't hear from you. Husband, wife, significant other, boyfriend, girlfriend, children, depending on how old you are. It might be empty nest, but they don't see you traveling like that. So they're like, yo, you get there, all right, you good, what's up? So maybe those type of people need to reach out to. Best friends, sisters, brothers, whatever, whoever you have a close circle relationship with, where when they travel, they hit you up. When you travel, you hit them up. Just reach out. Say, hey, I'm good. I got down here safe. We're good. It doesn't mean you need to check with them every day. Granted, you're on a trip. You're on a guy's trip. You're out there golfing. You're out there barbecuing, drinking scotch and playing poker, whatever. And so every day you may not need to, hit them up and say, I'm still good. I'm still good. I got home. I got back to the room. I'm in bed. I'm sleeping. I'm waking up. Like, you don't need to do that. If you have people you talk to every day, yeah, sure. There's no reason, there's no fault in communicating every day. But you're also on a trip with your boys or with your girls. And so, go enjoy yourself, have fun. But please, whether you're driving, flying, train, whatever, when you reach your destination, reach out to the people you care about and who care about you. Let them know you're safe. If you're going to be away for a week or 5 days or 2 weeks or a month, have that check-in every couple days. If you're down there 5 days, maybe the day you get down there, maybe the third day, maybe the day you're leaving. If that's a relationship you have, you don't talk every day, that should be sufficient. I'm still good, still kicking, not arrested, everything's great. Now, if it's like a wife, a spouse, husband, whatever, yeah, maybe kind of, text during the off days. Maybe reach out to them and have a conversation real quick every other day. Or just text them every other day or text them every day and say, hey, yeah, everything's good. Had a great time. Having a great time. You should know the cadence that you need for people to feel comfortable if you're away. And that's all. Just be respectful of those who may worry about you, because you don't want that to be something that ruins your trip. If somebody freaks out, they haven't heard from you in 18 hours or haven't heard from you in 24 hours. You don't want that to become the narrative of your trip and ruin your trip. You don't want that. So reach out. I want to thank Babs Faseesin. I think I got the name right. Faseesin. Check out his website, crackingthelifecode.com. I don't know about you, and I said this about a couple guests throughout my 4 years and 50 plus episodes. I felt like his dimes were a lot shinier that he dropped. And what I mean by that is a ton of what he said resonated with me. And I really, really hope that when you listen to the segment, you listen to the words, and you listen to how he broke things down, and especially the part about his parents, which caught me off guard that I kind of keyed on that and asked that question, but I could just tell right away that his parents were key to him. And there was a lot of stuff he said around it that I think is worth listening to again if you haven't caught on the first time. But you can find him on Facebook. Just look him up. You can find him on Instagram at Babs Faseesin. BABSFASEESIN. Check out his book, Cracking the Life Code: Keys to Master Your Mindset, Habits, and Behaviors for Personal Success, on Amazon. I promise you, it is something that I will buy. I'm not a big ebook reader. It is available on I believe, Kindle ebook. I did take a peek on Amazon before I started recording this. But because usually when I fly somewhere, I usually download some stuff from Netflix, or I have tremendously large playlists. I just listen to some music. It's flying is my chill spot. So I just listen to a show, watch a show, listen to music, whatever. But I'm perfectly fine with reading his book. Just based on the conversation I had, I want to hear more. I want to read what this book is about. So check him out. Babs Faseesin, excuse me. Support our sponsors, Dig'em Movers, for all your local and long distance moving services. You can find them at www.dig'emmovers.com. And SRE Solutions Inc. for all your PC support, website design, troubleshooting, antivirus removal, network cabling, network configuration, so much more and more and more. Check them out at www.sresolutions.org. And if you're interested in sponsoring on Dave's Head, reach out to me on any of my social media and we can make it happen. So appearances. total life mastery, and guys trips. All great reasons to be in love with now. That's all for this episode of Dave's Head. New episodes released on the second and fourth Friday of the month. For all things Dave's Head, check out our website at daveshead.card.co. Subscribe to watch new episodes on YouTube or Spotify video, or to listen via your preferred podcast player, go to anchor.fm/Dave's Head Pod. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, enjoy life, because life should be fun. Take care.